YouTube Collective. I am here to talk about a transit we are having on May 25th or the 26th, just depending on your time zone, where we are having the planet of Mars square the planet of Pluto. So we're having Mars is transiting through Taurus right now. And of course, we know that Pluto is transiting through Aquarius, where it will be transiting for the next 20 something years. Mars and Pluto, or sorry, Mars and Taurus will only be transiting Taurus for probably about another couple weeks or so, and then it will move on. But we are having this square between Mars and Taurus and Pluto and Aquarius. And I wanted to come on here and talk about this transit because I think this is going to be a very dynamic time for acknowledging your growth. Mars is a very action-oriented planet. In astrology, Mars rules the actions we take in life. You know, it is a planet that governs our, what's that word, bravado, or just our courage, our fighting power, our strength. And in Taurus, it's not as comfortable because Taurus is ruled, of course, by the planet of Venus. And Venus tends to not want to be at war, right? Venus tends to want to find harmony and pleasure and love. And let's just say that's just not what Mars has in store. So it's not as comfortable in Taurus. Nonetheless, it is here, I think, to teach us as a collective and as an individual, just a very deep lesson on something I've been, I think, theming this year thus far in my own personal life, and sort of what I am theming this video and this talk about how I see this transit happening with Mars in Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius. And there's a question: where can you bring love to the table? Yes, friends, I am terming it as that because we have had, sorry, I'm just going to adjust my camera here a little bit. We have had this energy with Taurus in the different luminaries and now through the different signs, or sorry, the different planets. And of course, we have had it square off with Pluto for pretty much the entirety of 2026. Okay. And I think, I mean, it's squared off with Pluto before this, but definitely I want to focus on it squaring off with Pluto here in 2026. And so I did a little bit of research and I just, it came to me that this is a pretty dynamic time between Mars squaring off with Pluto. We have had, if you can remember, and if you can't, I have dates. So we have had the sun in Taurus, square Pluto in Aquarius on April 25th of 2026. We have had Mercury in Taurus square Pluto in Aquarius on May 5th, 2026. We had Venus in Taurus, where Venus loves to be and where she's at home and most comfortable, We have had Venus and Taurus square Pluto April 3rd, 2026. And yes, friends, now we are having Mars in Taurus square Pluto um, May 25th or 26th, depending on your local area, 2026. Okay. So, and we have, had a new moon in Taurus. We're still sort of rounding off that new moon cycle where we started the new moon in Taurus on May 16th. And um, we are almost approaching the full moon of that new moon cycle. And so I just thought this would be a great time to really talk about this square because I think it's pretty dynamic. And I think it is designed for us to really focus on that Taurus house in our natal charts and that Aquarius house in our natal charts. Because those houses or places, depending on how you look at or view astrology, are telling a very significant story right now. Mars coming together with Pluto started its new cycle back in, I believe, January. And so now we are at this first quarter square where it is squaring off with Pluto. And it is a time where we really can utilize that Marsian courage that we have, where we can utilize the brave action in those places or that house in our natal houses in our natal charts to really think about how am I doing in this area of my life? This is that action energy right now with Mars squaring Pluto. And so, which is one of the reasons why I'm theming where can I bring love to the table? I think the Taurus energy already is a very loving energy, as Taurus is ruled by Venus and the planet of love, the planet of just harmony, the planet that it's one of the benefic energies in astrology is Jupiter and Taurus. And, I think Jupiter and Venus. And I think that we get a chance now, or we have had a chance, I think all of 2026, to really lean in on this area and look at how we are showing up with this Pluto squaring Taurus or squaring our Taurus house throughout many different planets and luminaries, with it squaring the sun, and of course it probably squares the moon. You have this point reactivated every month, usually when the moon is in Taurus, but also just having Mercury here and having Venus here and now Mars. I think it's really illuminating for us and wanting us to go deep. Pluto is not going to let up in terms of wanting us to go deep in this area of our charts. Earlier, I think it may have been back in April, was it? When I made a video where I talked about the sun squaring Pluto. Yeah, what was that? April 25th. I made a video around that time here on YouTube, and I talked a little bit about the sun squaring Pluto. And I went through the different rising signs, and I talked a little bit about how this might show up for you if you have the Sun and Pluto coming into contact in a square um, around this time frame. So go back and watch that video and maybe sort of get an idea for what areas of life this could be happening at for you. But now we are here with Mars, and Mars, as I mentioned, is the action planet. And Pluto in modern astrology is said to be the higher octave of Mars. So, and then of course, this is a square, which is of the nature of Mars. So, this is a very, very igniting moment for this Taurus house and this Pluto house in our natal charts. And so, we might be experiencing a lot along those lines. I know I am. I could definitely feel this square. And it is really calling me to go deeper. It is really calling me to ask myself, how and where am I bringing love to the table? Friends, you know, Pluto wants us to go deep. Pluto is not going to have it any other way. Where you have Pluto in your natal chart, and if you have Pluto making any aspects to maybe your sun or your moon or your Mercury or any of your personal planets, you are said to be a very Plutonian person, and you are said to be someone who wants depth. You know, you don't do very well with the shallow, you know, and the sign that Pluto is in tells you a lot about your energy and sort of where Pluto is working with you in your life on your evolutionary journey. So, I would encourage you to get to know a little bit about Pluto. And if you want to learn more about Pluto from me, please leave me a comment in the comment section. And I would love to talk with you about Pluto in your own natal chart. But as we go through this transit with Mars squaring Pluto, I think you're going to be able to see a difference in this area of your life, wherever that may be for you. This is, I feel like, the activation of all of this square moment, this square time that we've had. Don't get me wrong, I think it's all been activating. The sun squaring Pluto, the sun in Taurus, excuse me, squaring Pluto in Aquarius, Mercury in Taurus, squaring Pluto in Aquarius, and so on and so forth with Venus and now Mars. So we are definitely activated. This is the activation point for this transit. And Pluto is retrograde right now. I know when it was squaring the sun in Taurus and Mercury in Taurus and even Venus in Taurus, it was direct. Now it's squaring Mars where it's retrograde. And I made a video, I think a couple of weeks back when Pluto went retrograde, where I talked a little bit about Pluto going retrograde in Aquarius and the areas that it's going to go back over and cover for you. And I think I mentioned a little bit about where the houses or the places in your own natal chart, depending on your rising sign, the areas of your life where you will be going through a more introspection period in your life, where you are allowing Pluto to really take you through the depths of this area in your life, right? And to show you a few things, right? To really broaden you and do whatever it needs to do. You know, Pluto is is a heavy planet, you know, a little bit different than Mars. Pluto is a very strategic planet, and it takes a while to go around the full zodiac. And I think a lot of it is because Pluto wants us to really delve deep in particular areas of our lives and sort of understand our evolutionary journeys and why we are here and what we are learning as humans. So, I wanted to share that and share a little bit about this transit. I came to this song that I loved when this song came out in 2013. It is by a singer by the name of Sarah Bareilles. I'm probably not saying her name right, but the name of the song is Brave. And you may have heard this song. It was very popular in 2013, still popular to this day. And I sort of want to just end off with this video by sharing some of the lyrics from this song. It just really stood out to me because I think that with this Mars squaring Pluto transit, you know, it is going to take bravery, friends. It's really going to take bravery in this area of our lives to really understand where Pluto is transforming us or, you know, bringing a destruction or a rebirth or a regeneration, what have you. It's going to take us to be brave, and it's going to take us to want to see the depths in our lives. I know for a fact Pluto is not going to allow us to not see the depths. And after this Pluto transit in Aquarius, which, you know, as I mentioned before, is going to be a while, but either way, you know, we will have been brought to the depths of Pluto once it's all said and done. So I want to read some of the lyrics from this song, and yeah, and then I'll end off this video with with these lyrics. So again, the singer or composer's name is Sarah Bareilles, and the song was composed in 2013. The name of the song was Brave. And I don't know if Sarah wrote it. I'm not sure, but she definitely sang it. She did an amazing job, and she is a huge star and make lots of music. But I will read what some of the lyrics from, I'm not going to read the entire song, but just some of the lyrics that stood out for me that reminds me of sort of this time we are going through right now with Pluto or Mars in Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius. And it goes, you can be amazing. You can turn a phrase into a weapon or a drug. You can be the outcast or be the backlash of somebody's lack of love. Or you can start speaking up. Everybody's been there. Everybody's been stared down by the enemy, fallen for the fears, and done some disappearing. But don't run. Stop holding your tongue. Maybe there's a way out of the cage where you live. Maybe one of those days you can let the light in. Show me how big your brave is. I just thought this was so perfect, you know, and with this transit and just with all the activation from Pluto in Aquarius and the luminaries being in Taurus and um, sort of wrapping up even this cycle of the Taurus new moon and Venus being with Taurus squaring Pluto and, so on and so forth. I just thought I loved this song because I think that, with Pluto, we have to be brave. We have to show our bravery. And so, yeah, I wanted to share that. And again, just to remind the collective out there that where can you bring higher love to the table? Because I think that is what this transit wants us to understand. That is what this transit wants us to lean into. And and it will be tempting and it will be hard because I think the energy of Mars and the energy of Pluto is a different kind of love, if there is love there. I definitely, as I mentioned earlier, I think Mars being in the sign of Taurus doesn't do well. It's not comfortable. It's in a Venus ruled sign. And, Venus does want harmony and Venus wants love. And I would even venture to say peace. So I am going to leave it there, my friends, and I will be back on here to talk about the Sagittarius full moon that we will have coming up soon. And until then, peace and love.